Hello, and welcome to just a nice little wrap up, just to show what I read in January of the new year. And I have to say, we made quite the start to the year. I read 8 books this month, which for me is an astounding total that I don't think I'm going to manage to replicate. I'm not back at uni yet, so my life has pretty much just been avoiding humanity and reading the entire time. If you do enjoy the video and what I'm going to talk about, then please feel free to like and subscribe. It makes my little heart glow, as it were. The first thing I actually picked up and read all the way through this month was the book club pick in my Discord. So if you're interested in every month we pick a book and give it a read, say what we like, what we don't like. The first one, only 2 people actually completed the book. It was by Stephen Fry. Everyone else DNF'd it, whereas this one was a better reception and only a couple of people didn't enjoy the book. It was chosen by Anita, who I'll link. She has a review for this book as well, but it is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Everyone's talking about this book. It is in every Waterstones I go into where it's buy one get one half price. It's everywhere. They're really hyping this book. I really enjoyed it. It's a first person LGBTQ reimagining, retelling of the story of Achilles and Patroclus. I don't know if I'm saying these names right. I read the book with my eyes. I haven't heard about the Greeks since primary school. If I pronounce things wrong, then I don't know, write to some Greek person and tell them I'm a piece of shit. I don't care. So this is from what I've heard, accurate in some ways, not accurate in other ways, retelling of the Iliad by Homer. I own the Iliad. I don't plan on reading it. I plan on reading a lot, so who knows when I'll get around to it. It could be I'll have a video in 2037 when I finally read the Iliad, and I will reference this video in it. But first person doesn't normally vibe for me. I'm not a first person, but this was, I thought, really good. It's not my favourite book. I thought that if you don't know anything about the Iliad, I was engrossed in their relationship of Achilles and Patroclus. I was interested in the plot going on. I liked the prose. I thought it was very beautiful. It had very much one of those, just every sentence seemed to flow onto the next, and it was very easy to read. And there were poignant little bits. Everyone says this book's going to make you cry, and that is a false expectation. Don't expect to cry. I definitely didn't. I felt nowhere near crying during this. I felt angry. Things happened where maybe a normal human being with proper emotions would cry at that point, but I was just so angry at who was inflicting the said pain that there was no emotion from me. Successful choice. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. The second book I read this month was Royal Assassin, the second book in the Farseer trilogy. I loved it. I got it because I was so uninterested. I have to admit, I enjoyed Assassin's Apprentice. I read it like sometime last year and I enjoyed it, but that was the most I could say about it. I think I gave it like a 7. There were things I enjoyed, but it just didn't connect with me. I thought it fit in the man called Ove school of trying to make me feel bad and trying to make me cry. And I resent that. I resent something trying to force emotion on me. Whereas, so this edition, because I just wasn't interested, I bought it for 50p for a charity shop, and I actually love these editions. But this one, it's the second book in a series. It is my favourite book out of the trilogy, because spoiler alert, I finished the whole thing because I love this so much I had to just read the next one straight away. This continues the story of Fitz from the Assassin's Apprentice. He is now older, he's maturing, it develops the relationships that were set up in Assassin's Apprentice and then takes them to just where you feel actual connection. You're aware of his history with these people. Whereas in the first one where things are happening and you're kind of like, I just feel, this is just terrible stuff happening. Now he's actively making decisions, you know why he's doing them, they're still stupid as hell, but you know why he's doing them. And you feel bad. People say that this book destroys them more than the first one. I don't understand that personally, because at least in this one he has agency. He's doing things, there are at least movements where he is happy, whereas in the first one he has no happiness. Bad things happen, but there's at least a very moving plot that really gets you going along. And I found myself loving this book. And I will talk more about the conclusion when I get to it, but I would recommend picking up Farseer as a trilogy just to read Royal Assassin. Then it was Kindle time. Kindle time for my first ever arc. I went on NetGalley, I was looking through, I was like, man, I may try to get an arc, because I never have, and I never thought I would get one, because who would give their work early for free to me? So I looked through and I saw Ocean Vong on there, and Ocean Vong, I've done a review of On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully written, and so I was really interested in their book of poetry they've got coming out, which is Time as a Mother. It comes out in April. I'll do a review closer to the time. But Time as a Mother was amazing. It was a raw, gritty, beautiful, covering sexuality, family, loyalty, relationships, war, violence, everything just encapsulated in this one piece that you can read in a day. And there was just wonderful uses of language, wonderful organisation of poems, the way that they were shifting on to the next. And my two particular highlights were there was one called Old Glory, which is a listing of sayings that people have that you would associate with kind of old-timey, like greasy men, if you get what I mean. Like, you go down the pub and there's guys that are like, oh, give her one from me, that type of vibe. And it's a listing, they get more graphic and vicious as it goes along, and they're all filled with violent imagery that you just kind of ignore in day to day, where it's like, give them hell and that type of thing, where it's, when you list them up, you get that visceral sense of the language that men use and the brutality that's concealed within them. And then it just ends on a nice bit where it's kind of like, that's over, let's kill that, let's use their same vernacular and lexicon just to be like, your time is over, go away type thing. And I thought that was a beautiful piece in its disgustingness. And then the other one is I think it's the penultimate one, which is just a kind of stream of consciousness of Ocean Vong going through their existence and their memory of their mother and time, and hence why it's called Time as a Mother. But it just deals with everything that's addressed in the whole collection, and it's just really beautiful. So if you're interested in Ocean Vong, you've got time, you can pick up On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, fall in love with that, and then Time as a Mother will be out in April for you. So I mean, you've got plenty of time. Then we get on to my uni reads. I'm going back to uni. I'll be starting tomorrow when I'm recording this, so got to go back. And one of the books that I have to read is Frankenstein. I read Frankenstein for the first time last year, so this was a reread. Frankenstein's great. I do admit I struggled more this time because I'd read it so recently in my mind that I knew everything that was happening, and I knew everything that was coming, and I just wanted to read other things, so I forced myself through it, which led to me not enjoying it as much, but I still remember how much I enjoyed it the first time. If you like Frankenstein or are aware of Frankenstein but haven't read the book, I would recommend reading the book because it's so different from every retelling or film adaptation we've had. It's just such a simple tale, such a simple exploration of creation and responsibility, looking after those that you create, those that come after you, the idea of nature versus nurture, being abandoned, basically child abuse, all these things, how evil manifests in different forms. Then we come back to, I read Assassin's Quest. Now, I do need to say both of these, the whole trilogy I read alongside Grace, who I think will be having a review of the entire trilogy come out. So once again, check out the channel as always. Everyone knows who Grace is from my channel because I mention her all the fucking time. There's a reason for it, she's the best. Assassin's Quest is a good culmination to the trilogy. It is, like I said, Royal Assassin was amazing for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did also love reading this, considering how massive it is, and Robin Hobb loves to just spend time in each instance that happens, in every little detail, just bathing in it. And there are parts in this book where frustrating things happen. Fitz does incredibly stupid things that are beyond the point of stupidity, where you are quite literally like, this breaks my immersion, because there's no way a human being is genuinely this stupid. So that's my biggest problem with this book, is just pure stupidity. And when you're taking so long enjoying each moment, when something stupid happens, you are in that moment for a long time, suffering the consequences, and you're like, man, you are so stupid, Fitz. So beware. Also suffers from the problem of, I'm sorry, is there a woman has met Fitz? Well, naturally they want to fuck him. I hate it. That sucked. They're my two negatives. I still enjoyed this book a lot. The overall story, the journey that's taken, Fitz's character, the style of writing, so much good stuff to this trilogy. It's not my favourite trilogy, but I want to continue like Hobbs writing so much because I enjoyed it. It's a hard one to recommend for me. I feel like I will recommend it more once I read other trilogies by her, because apparently they get better and better. But for the time being, I would recommend this, but be aware that you may not like it. Next up in my gotta read for university list is Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. This also, it's because I read Frankenstein and Handmaid's Tale alongside Assassin's Quest, and so to keep up with the buddy read, I was reading a certain amount a day, and then I would reach a point where I then had to read these other books for uni, and I was just so tired and so done with it that I enjoyed The Handmaid's Tale. It is of course, it's a dark story. The story of a woman who is a handmaid in this dystopian version of the future, where a religious extremist group has taken over the country after some kind of possibly nuclear war, it seems like it's hinted at, and an extremist Christian society has been implanted in America, and you're now following Offred, who is just trying to live. The whole point of a handmaid is that they are there because they are still fertile compared to every other woman, and so their job is just to be paraded around until they are made pregnant in horrific scenes of, well, it's horrific by how mundane it is. It's rape, but rape done in the most disturbingly clinical and mundane sense it could be written, and it's all the more haunting and poignant for that it's not this violent sex act by, like, it's not like an attack by these men. It's just a general revulsion, but just the kind of, this is what is expected in society. And of course, reading this when you've got the problems at the moment across, at least at the very least in the UK, I don't know about anywhere else, where the amount of date rapes are flying up, and you've got people that are going out because they want to enjoy themselves, but there's now an expectation that could happen to you, and you just kind of have to deal with that and all look after each other. And it is a societal shift at the moment that we're going through, where it seems that rather than addressing the terrible things that are happening, where people are literally trying to rape people a lot in clubs, we're now just like, women are just having to go, we'll look after ourselves. And it's stuff like that makes this so difficult to read. People always say that, like, oh, well, it's even more relevant today. It's not more relevant today, it's exactly the same relevancy, because nothing ever changes, and we still live in a society where commonplace, it's just commonplace for there to be rape, and it's sickening, and this is a poignant book for that. In terms of the actual writing, I did not care for Atwood's prose particularly. There are some amazing one-off sentences, pieces of description that I absolutely loved. Like I would be reading it, and then the whole book is so obviously, the whole point is that it's mundane and just general, straight to the point, because that's the society they're living in. And I understand it, but for a reading experience, it's not enjoyable. But and then there's just these wonderful metaphors and similes and imagery used that I just stopped and I was loving it. And so it's a mixed book in that sense, but overall I very much enjoyed it, and I never want to read it again because it's just so fucked up. Penultimate book of the month was my favourite book of the month, because my god, If Cats Disappeared from the World is fantastic. I love this book. It is quite literally, this guy finds out that he has a brain tumour and he only has a certain amount of time to live. He goes home where he lives with just his cat because his mother has died, and he doesn't speak to his father anymore. And the devil's there waiting for him. The devil is a doppelganger. It looks exactly like him, and the devil is wearing like shorts and a Hawaiian t-shirt and sunglasses, and he's like, yo, if you want to live an extra day, you can make something disappear from the world and you get an extra day of life. And so this guy goes, oh shit, I have so many things that I could live without. Like, if I made 14,000 things disappear from the world, I would live until I'm 70. Well, it seems like a fair deal. So he agrees to it, at which point the devil reveals that it is the devil that gets to choose what disappears. And we then have him go through, it's a week worth of story being told of just him as things disappear and as he continues with life. It is an extremely funny book. It's extremely well-written, simple prose. Fly through it. I could have read this in a day if I wasn't reading something else at the same time, and I had to do that for uni. I think it's a perfect book because it's not a perfect book as in you should expect a grand piece of art. It is a perfect book in the sense that what it's trying to do, it does masterfully. It tells the story it wants to in a perfect little, short, very easy to read sense. It delivers its themes, it delivers its message exactly how you'd want to. At least for me. Maybe it's because there's references to films, there's references to music, there's references to all kinds of things. It's written from a male's perspective who is feeling very vulnerable, and this kind of sense that I feel like I related to, in the sense that when bad things happen, you rely like using comedy as a mask for other feelings. Like maybe this book was just tailor written for me. And then the last book, which was also another arc, was Age of Ash, which is by Daniel Abraham, who I read the Long Price Quartet. I love the Long Price Quartet. It is an immense, incredible piece of writing, and so this was my most anticipated book of the year. And so what Age of Ash is, it is called the Kithmar trilogy, and it is the same time frame of a year that takes place, and each book follows different characters showing the events that happened during that year, which will culminate. I have mixed thoughts on this book. Mixed thoughts because I have a review on Goodreads, which will probably go into more detail because this is just a general wrap-up. Daniel Abraham is a master of payoffs. First books in his series are notoriously weaker / very poorly reviewed compared to what you'd expect. Long Price Quartet, I think, is A Shadow in Summer averages at 3.6. Age of Ash is currently at a 3.6. Dagger, there's something, Dagger and Coin, Dagger and Path, Dragon's Path, some shit, also has like a 3.8. So he is notoriously low there. And then you notice a boom as you go along, each book getting better reviewed, because he is methodically slow. He unravels pieces to you bit by bit, slowly, that when you read his pieces as a whole, you read them back to back and it builds and it gathers, and it's like a snowball effect or a domino effect where suddenly more and more gets involved and you become more enthralled by the storytelling and the world and the interesting magic systems. So as much as this book, its thematics were done very well, its story, like its world building, was very interesting. There were certain characters that really engrossed me, but the main character and the main plot I was not interested in really at all, which could be a very big problem, because the first 40 pages of this, 40% of this book I wasn't particularly engrossed in it. I was reading, but I was just kind of noticing that some of this feels generic. I feel like I've read some of this before in other places, like Lives Locked the Moor or Mistborn. This kind of cut purse, thieving children kind of vibe. And then around the 40%, they introduce little elements, little pieces of world building, magic that are very interesting, and things that I haven't read elsewhere that then has me very excited to see what happens later on. I would recommend getting Age of Ash because, like I said, I do believe in him and I do want to support him. At the same time, to have the trust in him that he's going to pull it off and not read this book and go, oh, I don't really see what the big deal is. The Long Price Quartet is what I'd recommend because that gives you the trust. You will experience how amazing that series is and then be like, okay, I understand now. At the same time, the only way you can get Long Price Quartet that I'm aware of, unless you're very lucky to find a bind up in a store, is to buy it second hand, in which case no money is going to support Daniel Abraham from that. So the reason I would recommend buying Age of Ash is to support Daniel Abraham as a writer, because that's what matters. So I'm thinking that I've just cut out a whole speech on the Long Price Quartet. So if I have, you missed out. If I haven't, I apologise. But nevertheless, those are the books that I read this month. 8 books. 8 really good books overall. I don't believe I'll read this much again next month. Depending. I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm reading some new releases, reading some very old stuff. Hopefully get some more fantasy in. It's going to be a very varied month again. I've got to do some more uni reading. You've got some Greek plays and that in here next month. All kinds of jazz. So, if you have enjoyed, please do like, please do subscribe, it really does help. Leave a comment, any thoughts on the books I've mentioned. If you're interested in the book club, our next choice is Each of Us a Desert, chosen by Angela over at Literature Science Alliance. That begins in February. Feel free to join. As always, just have a nice rest of your day.